the total number of minds in the universe is one, that consciousness is a singularity, and therefore all of us are one great being, moving around in different individual expressions of ourselves. So then you have the early integration overtly into other civilizations. The Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind initiative, we're training people all over the world to do this now. At level 4, you have at least 1% of the civilization in cosmic consciousness. Why is that important? Because that creates a field effect where everyone else gets pulled along. They quicken their ability to go into higher states of consciousness, because you then have 1% of the population in the state of real enlightenment. Many people have an experience with civilizations that are at these levels, 5, 6, 7, 8, and up, and they'll think they had an experience with an angelic being or celestial being because there's so much similarity. But they're distinct, but they're similar, because oneness is what it's all about. But also the technologies, when you're talking about a physical planet with physical people, they become transitioning into what have been called light beings and craft that are light ships and civilizations that everyone on it in these very high states of consciousness. This is where it gets really interesting. Michio Kaku, many of you have heard the name, has talked about us getting from a level 0 civilization to a level 1. Peter Thiel has talked about us going from 0 to 1 technologically, because we really are stuck. That there's innovation around the edges, but there's been no big breakthroughs. Well, I got news for our entire world, the globe, the earth, human civilization. We're at level 0. The good news is we're going to make it all the way to at least 7 or 8, and you'll see this in a moment, in the next few 100,000 years, which we'll describe. Now, this is the current human predicament. We're we have disunity, war, primitive environmental destroying technologies, and we're at this point of extinction level events. So a level 0 civilization would be the current conundrum that we're in now. And that is, we have advanced enough technologically to have cars, jets, nuclear weapons, but spiritually and socially we have not advanced to where we could have those technologies and behave in a way that wouldn't destroy the planet. It's sort of an existential realization and a crisis that the root of this is the lack of recognition of the central oneness we have, not only with each other, but with the cosmos. In a lot of ways, the problem is a spiritual problem, not religious, but the solution is spiritual also, deeply spiritual. I have a theorem. Spirituality is usually inversely proportional to religiosity. So the trappings of the catechisms of religion often bring people further away from true spirituality, because it becomes a matter of control and demagoguery, which is what men do. But if we were to look at true spiritual development and the pursuit of higher states of consciousness that I went through a moment ago, those higher states of consciousness are all attainable by every one of us. But the first level of consciousness we have to attain to live on this planet, to get to a level 1 globally peaceful civilization, is to understand there is only, as Erwin Schrödinger said in 1908, who was one of the fathers of quantum mechanics, but it was a particle wave theory, he said the total number of minds in the universe is 1. That is, it's a singularity. Consciousness is a singularity, and therefore all of us are one great being, moving around in different individual expressions of ourselves, of that great being. And that once we realize there is this deep and ineffable experiential level of oneness, we're not going to want to engage in warfare because my God is better than your God, I'm Catholic and you're a Protestant, we'll blow each other up in Ireland, I'm Sunni, you're Shia, we're going to blow each other up in Iraq, I'm this, you're that. That whole divisiveness. The problem is, the thrust of the classified projects and almost all of the UFO subculture is to show the alien UFO phenomenon as the good guys and the bad guys, and the cowboys and the Indians, and they're the grays and the reptilians versus the ones that are Nordic and of course always look like a beautiful woman from Sweden. Let's call it out. It's interstellar racism instead of planetary racism. It's racism in a different guise. It's just flat out racist. So to get to here, we have to transcend isms. We live in a time of all the isms. Capitalism versus communism, racism, homophobia, all the religiosity and ethnic divisions, all of that is a symptom of something more central. And this is the lack of the spiritual realization of the ineffable oneness of all intelligent life. And that isn't just human, but interstellar as well. That is the foundation of universal peace. Now, to get to this, which is not just peaceful on this earth, it's no good to have world peace if it's based on an interplanetary war. That's not going forward, my friends. It just isn't going forward. To have interplanetary war be the thing that unites us, as Ronald Reagan said at the United Nations, oh, wouldn't our job of creating world unity be easier if we had a common alien threat to unite against? No. We don't have to unite the world around another fight. However, that would greatly enrich the military, industrial, laboratory, finance complex, which is what's running the planet into the ground. All right? So we're going to ground hard, and we're facing an extinction level event, particularly if we go there. My main focus for the last 20 years at the Pentagon and CIA is to pull those folks away from things that I haven't ever talked about, that are fully operational, that are trying to be agent provocateur, to provoke an interplanetary war that is actively going on. It's very dangerous. It's the main thing I talked about with Boutros-Ghali, the UN Secretary General in the 90s. But this could lead to an extinction level event. Several things. One, thermonuclear weapons, obviously, mutual assured destruction as it's called. Two, biosphere collapse, because we've stayed with fossil fuels and nuclear and those systems for 100 years longer than we should have. We should have had Tesla type, real Tesla type systems 100 years ago, and could have. We should have had no surface roads by the mid-50s. Forget the Eisenhower interstate system, didn't need it. We should have had a globally prosperous, peaceful civilization by the League of Nations that got subverted after World War I, and then we had World War II. And the militarists want to have World War III, and as Douglas MacArthur said, will be interplanetary. That's what they want. They want global destruction and war. These are sick puppies who are running these operations. I know a lot of them. Okay, so that, I've met too many of them. I've been in skiffs underground, I've had dinner. They either hate me or they love it. I don't mind being hated by people like that. So, anyway, so this level of zero civilization is where we are. The foundation, the root of that dysfunction is the lack of the understanding of the oneness that of all life, not just on earth, but in space, in the heavens. So that is a deep consciousness. This is the deep ethics behind the science of consciousness that can transfer into sociology and psychology and politics. It needs to happen. And it's going to happen through sort of a field effect that we call the 1% effect, we'll get to in a moment. So once there is a certain consensus in consciousness to live together peacefully, and to do so from a deep level of the experience of the transcendent aspect, non-local aspect of consciousness, a really deep level of spirituality. It's more than a religious catechism. It's the experience of that ineffable oneness that Edgar Mitchell experienced when he was on the moon and looked back and saw the earth and could go away with his thumb. That level of cosmic awareness, not necessarily fully established in cosmic awareness, but the experience of that oneness in pure consciousness and meditative states and understanding of it, you need 1%. So we need 75 million people. It's 7.5 billion on the planet, do the math. We need 75 million people actively in that state and not only just thinking about it intellectually, but experiencing it and acting that way. Then we get here. Now, how does that happen with 1%? You know, they've done studies with meditators where they'll send them into a city and there'll be a group of people meditating. If they have 1%, say a city has 250,000 people, so 1% of that would be 2,500. So if you send 2,500 people in there who are in meditation together and stay there for some time, the crime rates go down. There is more coherence in society. This has been documented. But it's interesting because in non-human, non-sociological studies, guess what? They found the same thing. It's called field coherence, quantum mechanics. So take, for example, the superfluidity in helium. You can take a container of helium, cool it down to absolute zero, which is minus 260 or 70 degrees, something like that. And as you begin to do that, the helium atoms begin to become aligned coherently. When 1% become coherent, there's what's called a phase transition. And the entire container of helium becomes superfluid. And it can go up and around and through, and it's total coherence. It takes 1%, not 99, not 51, it's not voting. It's a 1% of genuine coherence. So if 1% of us can become coherent in deeper consciousness, it would move the entire planet to a level 1 right here. See what I'm saying? This is a message of good hope. 1% is attainable. It's 1 out of 100 souls on this planet. Very doable. And now, here's a cautionary footnote. As you approach the phase transition, the chaos within that milieu, within the container, becomes more and more chaotic. It looks chaotic. It starts roiling and boiling and being crazy. Pretty much describes our society now, right? But when it hits that 1%, and it's a stable 1%, not transitory, then the whole thing goes through this phase transition. It's completely calm and magical. That's where we're headed. We are very close to that phase transition. But to make it through in the best way possible for our children and our children's children, our children's children's children, and frankly, the 20,000 generations of souls waiting to come here for this next yuga, this era that we're entering, we got to get this right. We need that 1% in a established fashion. At that point, you have a global peaceful civilization. And when you have that, all things are possible. Why? Because the technology, here's a message of great hope for everyone of any age, particularly younger people who feel so like the world is going to hell in a handbasket because there's nothing they can do about it. There's everything we can do about it. Because we can come together in unity, we can enter into this coherent state in meditation and action. And when the world can make this transition to a level 1, all these technologies that have been in classified projects for 60 years can be used because they will only be used for peaceful purposes. They will not be used as a weapon. Now, remember, all technologies are double-edged swords, and it is based on the consciousness of those who wield it. I can take a knife and put butter on the bread, or I can take it and slit your throat. The knife doesn't care. The knife doesn't care. It's the consciousness of those who wield it. So we need to have the enlightened and the good people of Earth, which is most people, understand this and make this happen so that these technological breakthroughs that have been extant for decades in classified projects can be put into peaceful utilization, which would allow the Earth to heal. It would eliminate poverty in 1 generation. It would eliminate all pollution immediately with these technologies. There's no effluent. Manufacturing would be transformed to zero pollution. Transportation, utilities, energy generation, all of it has zero pollution. You wouldn't need surface roads. Forget the 101 being clogged up with an accident, or the 405 or 95 or wherever you live, or outside Paris on the Beltway. All of that is an artificial state because the state of coherence and peace has been forestalled We're all responsible for that. And the aggressiveness of sociopaths in the corporate, military, intelligence, governmental worlds that have taken it upon themselves to keep the fires of conflict and war burning longer than they should have ever been allowed. Now, these interstellar civilizations understand this. They're watching, they're waiting patiently, but there's a limit to how far we can go before we blow the system and have an extinction level event, which would be a biosphere collapse, a massive war with these weapons, or worse, the fools that have these technologies who are weaponizing them and putting them on satellites targeting ET craft provoke something that we could not recover from. So I think that this is why disclosure is important. The CE5 initiative of making contact peacefully with these civilizations is important, and your own meditation practice and pursuit of enlightenment is so important to the future of humanity. It's critical. This is not a philosophical angels on the head, the tip of a pin sort of thing. This is essential, and we are in a global emergency that needs an emergency intervention. And as I always joke, I'm an emergency doctor. I know an emergency when I see one. So guess what? We're in one. But it's like the frog being boiled, and the heat's going up slowly, 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 and the frog doesn't know until it's cooked. It's cooked. So we're about to get cooked. The biosphere is cooking. The waterways are dying. The land is polluted. There's a balkanization of left and right and sort of proto-fascist and neo-fascist. All of that, and that's not sustainable. That's not a sustainable paradigm. We have to have a sustainable paradigm based in consciousness and peace and higher states of consciousness. And it isn't going to be everyone on Earth, but we need the 1%, the phase transition. There you go. So that's where we have to do. Once we have this, then medical technologies that are based on trans-dimensional physics can be used, would be used, and developed quickly. Everything you're using for energy would be from 0-point energy, which is the ability to tap into that deep level of the baseline energy field of the cosmos. And it's estimated that every, the volume inside a coffee cup has enough energy in it to boil off the Earth's oceans. It's a huge amount of energy. And of course, Tesla called it the infinite energy field. Professor Dirac called it the Dirac Sea, modestly, after himself. And but whatever, it's there, it's been proven to be there. Technologies have been developed based on it. If anyone has one, hand it off to us. We'll get it out in the next 6 months, in 6 days actually. But that's what we need to have. And then all the other ones can come in. Electromagnetogravitics. If you're a peaceful civilization, not using it for a missile launch system, then instead of having a Airbus 380 or 747 to go to Europe or Australia, you go up, a few minutes later you land. Wonderful. Those are fully developed and operational and classified projects. We have them, we're not using them, and in order to use them fully, we're going to have to function like a level 1 civilization. The hallmark of which is we are in a permanent, not transitory, permanent state of global peace, but interglobal as well, interplanetary. World peace would have been great around 1900 to 1920, but in this time, we're already in an interstellar period, and so it has to be universal peace. So this is why the motto is universal. Our objective is universal peace, not world peace. It's too late for just world peace. People need to kind of catch up with where the trend, things are moving forward whether people want it to or not. And it is. So once we reach this state of global and universal peace, and we have de-weaponized space, we have made peaceful contact with these civilizations, we have made peace with ourselves, these extraordinary technologies that are already in existence can be put into full application. And that world, which could happen within 20 years, will be more different than today is from the Stone Age. Literally more different. But there are stakeholders in the current order that don't want that to happen. Whether it's the war machine, the military-industrial complex, the technology sector, the energy sector, the transportation sector, the medical sector. We're talking unbelievable amounts of the macroeconomic system we're in is based on a collapsing order, and that it's an order that's destroying the planet in the meanwhile. So to move off that trajectory, we're going to have to make some very hard, grown-up decisions very quickly, because we're living right now in a period of the biggest mass extinction of species since the dinosaurs. And it's all man-made. All of it's man-made. We're doing all of this. So we've created the problem, we can solve the problem. But to get there has to come from, as Einstein said, a different level of consciousness than what created it. We can't replace international conflict or racism or homophobia or ethnic conflict or religious conflict with interplanetary xenophobia and conflict, which is the main thrust of the fake disclosure efforts that are going on, and which is people of goodwill and conscience need to understand what's really happening out there. And then once you have this permanent peace, this level 2, these get fully established, and the pursuit of the science of consciousness is the central, this is the key thing between a 1 and a 2. Now all these things are overlapping, just like the other states of consciousness. These, the seeds of this are already in level 1, level 0, we're working on that. The seeds of a level 2 are in this, but then the pursuit of the sciences of consciousness and the interface between consciousness and mind and space, time, matter, electronics, and higher states of consciousness, personal enlightenment, all through those states of cosmic consciousness, God consciousness, unity consciousness, etc., that becomes the central focus of the civilization. Why? Because there's infinite abundance. You push a button, you materialize what you need. There's no scarcity, there's no poverty. People aren't working 80 hours a week with 2 parents trying to have a family. The whole social structure changes where it can then begin to pursue not only creative and artistic pursuits, but the personal individual development of higher states of consciousness. That becomes the main thrust of a level 2 civilization. Next. Thence to Interstellar. Now, once the civilization is peaceful and is also can understand transdimensionally all of these systems and is in a state where they're pursuing higher states of consciousness so they can understand what's out there. There's a lot out there that's amazing. You get cleared to be interstellar. So at a level 3, humans will become interstellar, overtly. So we will travel amongst the stars as humans. And then there's the development and widespread establishment of science of consciousness, not just that as a pursuit, and the higher states of consciousness start getting really the pursuit of not just part of the society, but the entire society. So this is a gradual process. It doesn't happen all at once. But the time is, don't think in terms of time. Think in terms of event horizons. Okay? The big mistake, people say, when? Forget time. Time's an illusion. It has to do with milestones and event horizons of what we accomplish as a people. So then you have the early integration overtly into other civilizations. The Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind initiative, we're training people all over the world to do this now. So it's sort of the pioneering vanguard of this. So that's what we're doing. And when inviting them to come visit, and they do, and you'll see some of this in a moment. At level 4, you have at least 1% of the civilization in cosmic consciousness. Why is that important? Because that creates a field effect where everyone else gets pulled along, where they quicken their ability to go into higher states of consciousness, because you then have 1% of the population in the state of real enlightenment, where they're enlightened in the state of unbounded consciousness while they're walking around and have you. So this is a level 4 civilization. These are senior, and the ETs we're encountering that are at this level, those are the senior ambassadors that are enlightened. They have contact with other advanced civilizations, and they're providing guidance to emerging civilization. What does that mean? And in the cosmos at any given time, there are civilizations like we are now, or like we were 10,000 years ago, et cetera, and so on. So you then become mentors. This is why people say, well, ancient people had contact with ETs. I say, yeah, we did. We did. We've never been alone. We'll never be alone. Have never been alone. And the evidence for that is quite obvious to anyone who looks at it dispassionately. So the reason I put a line here, everyone at birth is born into cosmic consciousness. Because that's what, and this could happen fairly quickly. Once you hit that 1%, there is this coherent field shift. So then all the babies and children that manifest in that world are in a state of enlightenment at birth. There's widespread experience of the cities, or these innate Vedic powers, and technologies parallel those states. What does that mean? It means that you can then safely understand in consciousness and do these teleportation, bilocation, but it means because you can experience it and understand it, your technologies mirror it and you can use them safely without harming, because these are incredibly powerful technologies, both in terms of your personal experience, but also when you apply it into an electronic system, an electromagnetic system, trans-dimensional physics. So these civilizations are part of a senior interstellar council collective that has been operating since time immemorial. And that is the central clearing entity that our group contacts and is cleared through to operate. Now at this point, a level 6 civilization is one where at least 1% of the population, that coherent field, is in God consciousness, celestial. And that physical world takes on qualities of almost like a high astral world, but it's a physical planet. Everything is just very refined. The technologies, the environment, the consciousness, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And so that is when it really shifts. Level 7 is where celestial and God consciousness, everyone from birth is in that state. All because remember, neuroscience, epigenetic studies recently out of the top universities have found that when you're in a meditative state, it actually not only are those experiences passed on to the next child, but that the neuroplasticity enables the mind to actually be altering its physical form, and it is carried on and passed on in one generation. It used to be thought this had many generations. It's passed on in one. Well, positive and negative. So as you evolve and become more refined, there is this quickening where the children born into those civilizations are in these higher states at birth. And this level 7, everyone is born into that state of celestial perception, full cities, ability to manifest, dematerialize, what have you. And this is a very high, and I'm talking extraterrestrial, physical planets, physical worlds, but it has a corollary on the celestial highest astral, but it's physical. And then we're going to keep going. Level 8 is where you have at least 1% in this state of unity consciousness, where they're able to directly perceive unbounded mind everywhere. Those technologies that are corollaries to that interface with not only the innate cities, but they appear as celestial and can appear as with a thought. So you can manifest spacecraft, places, planets. This gets into some really, the term at the CIA is WSFM, weird science and frickin' magic. It isn't magic, but it's something that many people have an experience with civilizations that are at these levels, 5, 6, 7, 8, and up, and they'll think they had an experience with an angelic being or celestial being because there's so much similarity. All right, but they're distinct, but they're similar because oneness is what it's all about, but also the technologies, when you're talking about a physical planet with physical people, they become transitioning into what have been called light beings and craft that are light ships and civilizations that are everyone on it in these very high states of consciousness. So this is when at birth everyone is, a level 9, everyone is in perfect unity consciousness at birth. Now this is almost too hard to comprehend but from where we are at a level 0. But these civilizations are out there. We've had contact with these ambassadors. And at this point, about 1% are in this Brahman consciousness, where they're experiencing within themselves not only unboundedness within and unboundedness externally, seeing all of it as one pure conscious field, but can experience the whole cosmic creation at will within mind and consciousness as an individual. So that's this state. And then 10 is when everyone is in that Brahman consciousness state. And it goes, believe it or not, it goes on from there. But this is probably enough for us to sort of contemplate and meditate on. What's interesting about all of these, from a level 0 to a level 10, is that the technologies are commensurate with the level of consciousness. So the consciousness interface with technologies, physical form, physical worlds, physical spacecraft, are an outgrowth of the levels of consciousness attained. But think about our world. Most of our world is in a state of disunity, socially, spiritually fractured and separate from our inner self. Our technologies are destructive, violent, breaking apart things, blowing things up. Your car, you're basically just having a little controlled explosion in an internal combustion engine, burning dinosaur-era fuels, destroying the environment. And so is your electricity that you're charging your Tesla with. So until I'm trying to get these high-tech people to think a little further. So go a little further. Let's go. Come on. All right, it's enough of that. Tinkering around the edges won't do. It's time that we launch to this next level. And that you begin to understand what you see happening technologically and environmentally is a reflection of the level of consciousness of the planet. This is why we need this 1% effect in people who are pursuing higher states of consciousness, meditating, understand this, to create that morphogenic field, this quantum coherent field transition, phase transition, that will then, people you don't even know, will be affected by your state of consciousness. And they've done studies because they will spontaneously move away from the actions and thoughts of destruction. All right? But imagine then, extrapolate that up through these higher states of consciousness, the correlations in technology, in experience, in purpose. And your purpose in the cosmos and being. It's beautiful. Now, let's go back a slide. This, level 7, as I have understood it, is where humans, we will attain this level, where everyone is in this state of God consciousness by the end of this cycle, this yuga, this 500,000 year cycle that just opened. So in the next few 100,000 years, Earth and all of humanity will be at this level, a level 7. It'll take a little longer to go beyond. So this is an object that came in from a team member who was in Wichita Falls, and this exact craft is seamless, has sort of a aperture here, these strange structures coming off of it. He was doing a CE5 and this floated in and materialized and dematerialized, and it was sort of a reconnaissance vehicle. I got from the French Ministry of Defense a drawing of almost the exact same thing of a sighting in the 60s in France of this. Next. And this was a daytime CE5 event. A member of our team, Ivy Blank in New Mexico, was doing these protocols, and she was outside Santa Fe. She didn't see anything, she felt it, because these are usually phasing and moving at speeds the human eye can't see, by the way. She took a picture, and there's this seamless dome disc that appeared about 30 feet wide, moving about 500 miles an hour, that it came in and zipped in and around. This is one of my favorites. Just happened about 9 years ago, 8.5 years ago in Joshua Tree National Park. This is an Interstellar ambassador. He has sort of it looks like a yarmulke, teleportation thing. That's where yarmulkes came from, by the way. On his head, This is an eye, that's an eye. He's wearing some night vision goggles. His nose is lit up. He has a very fine mouth. He has a receding forehead like I do, and hair. This is his, well, this is his right hand, his left hand, and he was floating. You'll see the original picture in a moment. Outside, there was a orb that had come right beside my shoulder, and this is not a human light. This is a trans-dimensional light, and this being appeared partially in this environment. The wings, it looks like wings, it's not. It's the teleportation trans-dimensional energy that when you did the contrast you could see. So this is his head, his chest, waist, one leg, the other arm. And nothing was seen with the eyes. But we heard 4 or 5 ETs after this orb appeared beside my right shoulder, speaking right outside our circle. You could hear them talking. Not English, I don't know what they were speaking. Andromedan, because they were from Andromeda Galaxy, they told us. And then one of our team members literally held her breath and took a picture, not on a tripod, and got this picture from where these 4 or 5 ETs were speaking. Most people heard all females. I heard one male, and it was this gentleman who told me his name was Bijou, and from Andromeda, and very, very connected, very high ambassador, probably a level 7 to 8 civilization from the Andromeda Galaxy. So this is a picture of, just the contrast turned up a little bit. You can see the chairs and where he is, and this is where we cut it out so you can show. Look at the size of his head from his eye. Oh, can you? I don't know what's happening here. There's from his head, from his eyes up, is about 3 to 4 times our cranial vault, right? And the front of his head have these like Worf, have these indented concave areas here and here. There are 2 concave areas on the front of the skull, and this is his head, this is his chest, this is his legs and his arm, and he has like night vision goggles or glasses on. His lip is right there, very fine lip, but he does have hair. Could almost look human, not quite, but similar to a human, and very, very highly intelligent. I asked him, I was sensing his consciousness and intelligence, and a very high state of enlightenment and IQ in the 450 range. So this are just some examples going back years, 10 years ago. This is after there are any satellites visible, and we have these objects that'll come over and will signal, and then it will then send a beautiful, this is night vision, it's actually a blue-white light that comes in, and very beautiful. And this, we have thousands of hours of these, and it's, you need to be sure you go out with a satellite chart, and preferably the times of year where you're up late enough after any satellites are visible, because they're in the shadow of the Earth, and there's no mistake. This is beautiful. Next. And then we have these spheres that appear. That's me wearing a coat. It was kind of cold. And there's clear sky, and an object materializes and signals back. You'll see. Yeah, it's beautiful. And then they can come in right into the ground in the forest. Sometimes you can have a sphere, and inside the sphere, if it came fully into 3D, be a massive ET craft. But often they'll stay in a form and also go right in front of the trees. These are right in front of us. Actually, my wife and I, this next one's so fun, watch. Boom. It looks like a little lightning, but it's not. It's crystal clear conditions right in front of us. It comes in, so that's a craft. It's just bumping up again from the gap into this dimension coming in. And then they're going to be on the field around you. They may not be visible, they may be there in the near astral gap, or they may fully materialize. We've had ones fully materialize, flesh and blood, who have appeared and then vanished. This is one of my absolute favorite of all time, just because it's so cool. We're in the field above us. Oh my God. We're doing the protocols. You can hear everybody gets excited. It's so cute, like children. But look, it lifts straight up right here. Oh, yeah. goes up, turns left, partially dematerializes. The camera guy, brilliant to track this. I helped him with my laser. And it comes over, and there it is, this. And it's doing this sort of movement and going in and out of space-time and vanishes. Now with the naked eye, seeing this, it lifts right up. Now watch this in slow motion. Up, right up from the field in front of us, up into the sky, and turns. There it is, this. That's a light ship. So civilizations that have evolved where they can shift between 3D, light, astral light, pure consciousness, no, the whole thing. That's what was up at Mount Shasta. Very advanced civilizations, very high levels of consciousness attainment. So this is interesting because this happened several nights. Just the last night we were there.
Look at that, beautiful. And it has a really white, it's like a star now. It's like one of these stars.
Mm-hmm. So we can mute that, the sound. But this is important because we just came down off the mountain, and several nights we were up there, we had these objects coming out, and they were showing us that deep inside Shasta, there's a trans-dimensional interstellar facility. Smooth walls, just sort of diffusely lit, and there are various different civilizations connected to this volcano, Mount Shasta, which of course could become active, but there have been seen. This is in a sheer cliff area in Glacier, and nobody could stand there. And we had this happen the first night a week ago Saturday, and 2 or 3 other times that we were out there. The last night, Friday, when we were up there, we had in this exact same location one that was there for about half an hour until we had a site invasion from people who had recognized me in town, and we had to evacuate. This I love. This is, I'm walking on the beach doing my kind of walking meditation, and a person takes this picture, feeling the craft, can't see it, and she, in the sky is a partially materialized disc, same object we'd seen the night before that came streaking out of the sky and went straight into the ocean. Here it is with the contrast enhancement. And it is a disc, and that ship, by the way, later, I'm not showing it in this series, appeared on the beach, partially materialized, but with 3 points of light. One was teal blue, one was white, and one was golden. And there were 3 beings in their pure consciousness form in an energy field that communicated. We filmed that for an hour. We have an hour of these things on the beach. And at the end of it, I walked into the energy field, and there was this beautiful shimmering light above me. The people saw me dematerialize. I didn't expect, but I had this experience, and I knew I could have gone with them, and I knew I shouldn't, so I was very emotional about it because, you know, I'm kind of stuck here. But anyway, so it was, I was just crying like a baby. These are beautiful. This is very typical. We had this happen all the time. We're on the beach. You can hear the water, and this is a ship, a boat out here. This is nothing. There are lights on the Highway 12 on the outer banks of North Carolina, barrier islands. And you heard our detector. We have electronics that will go off when the ETs are communicating or approaching us. And they're just simple. They're, you know, magnetometers, trifilmeters, laser detectors like you'd have for cars for detecting police. And this object comes, look, lights up the whole ocean.
Oh, wow.
And another one.
Yeah, and this is remarkable because at the time it appears, there's beep, beep, because there's a trans-dimensional electronic discharge. The color of that was golden orange. This is a night vision camera, so all you see is greenish. But it was beautiful, beautiful. And look, when it's gone, nothing there. There's no satellite, no plane, nothing. So they come into this dimension and appear, and what you have to remember is when something like this is happening, look at the whole ocean's lit up like a full moon. It was very, very big, very bright. Is that they're really asking you to connect to them in consciousness into these other dimensions. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes. And then have further contact. Yeah, now watch this, how it moves. This went on for quite some time. In the middle of all this, we were being harassed by the federal park rangers, and they did a setup where they gave us permits for night fishing but not stargazing, so I got arrested, and they were going to put me in federal prison for 3 years. So I had to plead to 2 federal misdemeanors. That's why I can't get TSA pre-check or anything, because I'm a convicted, anyway, for praying for universal peace. I mean, it was a total setup. You know, so that's why I'm very cautious where I go now, because the federal Nazis have really done a number. So this, we're in France. I'm doing a demonstration. It's about 60 people there for just a weekend. And the Ministry of Defense of France had a senior admiral there, and this comes in. It's not quite fully materialized. It's flat, sort of mauve colored. You see people turning, everyone saw this flash in. Luckily, a camera lens was open. And it was coming in because I was getting ready to do a Sanskrit Vedic ceremony and enter into meditation. It was still daytime, but everyone saw this sort of like multicolored rainbow come in. And the only thing that the camera picked up was this. Very strange, etheric, barely in this dimension disc. And it was, they're observing us a few feet above the ground, waiting for the meditation to start. So whenever we start the meditation process, and I have a ceremony I do in ancient Sanskrit, which predates any known language on earth, actually, from the Vedas. And the Vedas are not don't conflate the Vedic with Hindu, but I mean, the Vedas predate any known organized religion. It's a philosophy of knowledge and the science of consciousness. And before I was a medical doctor, I was a Vedic scholar and Siddha meditator and meditation teacher back in the 70s. Then this is so beautiful because we're on this beach about 8 years ago, and I see this being come in. And you see the 2 eyes here, and it's sort of a crystalline structure. And these are beings that are at the level of a level 8, 9, 10 civilization. They have a physical presence, they have worlds, but it is so abstract, it's so rarefied. But it's a beautiful picture. Now people said, what is this halo? It's sort of a toroidal, like a toroid is like a donut, energy field that is created that they can then appear in. But this was visible with at the level of subtle perception, celestial perception, which develops when you meditate a lot. You can see these energies. And I asked someone, I said, there's a being standing right here. He takes a picture, and this is who's there. Very high level, at the level of, the civilization that's God consciousness, 7, 8, 9, 10, and above. Then this is fun. We're meditating. I'm going through this whole deep meditation, and we're sitting, and look what comes into the circle. This is one photograph, by the way. It's just showing different parts. So we're sitting there meditating, and this is a Peruvian medical doctor who is having an enlightenment experience of her third eye opening and enlightenment. And look at it come in and wrap around her and goes up. Wow. That is just one still photograph. Nice. Beautiful. That's really good. Yeah. Welcome to our world. You should come on these expeditions. So this is, I do them a few times a year. And that was just you can see the ocean back there. Beautiful experience. And she told us afterwards what happened. And it was this experience of contact with a very advanced interstellar civilization. But at the same time, they helped her have this breakthrough in her opening of her third eye and her remote viewing capability and an experience of cosmic consciousness. So they were helping her. She's a wonderful woman. And this is pretty typical things that happened all over the world. We were up at Woodborough Hill near Alton Barnes where so many crop circles had appeared, and we're in circle, and this comes up. Looks like the sun. This looks light. It's actually like 10 or 11 at night. The camera ISO is set so it looks like daytime. And this beautiful spherical craft appears, and you see people turning around trying to see it. It's quite beautiful. And I don't know if it was this year or it was a subsequent year, when I was up there doing the Sanskrit ceremony and meditating, they allow cows all over this meadow up on top of Woodborough Hill. They all came around And they knelt down and sat down around us and meditated with us through the whole process. And when it was over, they got up and wandered off. So even animals and nature will respond to that state of consciousness. So this is, we're looking in a crop circle. This is my hand. And I say there's an object, there's a spacecraft, sphere of this people from another star system. Now, with the naked eye, you're not seeing this, but you can, as you zoom in on it, you'll see this beautiful kind of golden, has a bit of a little bit of blue and red aura around it, craft, a ship that is in a trans-dimensional energy field. This, if it actually expanded into 3D, from trans-dimensional out of the gap, fully materialized, would have been a huge spacecraft, but it's just only in that form. And all the people I've dealt with in military and Air Force folks have seen craft go into this form and from this form expand out into full 3D. So there's this plasticity of space that we need to remember. It's not as rigid as you think. Here it is. You can see some blue. This is a normal setting, high quality Nikon camera taken this picture. This is beautiful because I'm doing this ceremony called a puja, and we're in a crop circle. And this weird thing appears. It's like a trans-dimensional structure, and this blue light. We had no blue lights out with us, and there's this with a point, and the whole puja set is enveloped in this cobalt blue light. It was after we had done, the green light is the LED of one of our radar detectors that we put there to pick up any trans-dimensional electronics as sort of an early warning system or early notification system. But it's quite beautiful. And we have many of these objects that come all around us, in the circle, through us, and have really beautiful messages. I mean, often this will be happening while we're having a message from these other civilizations. This is beautiful because this is on this land I had in Crestone, Colorado, and there's an object that lifts up and stops right here. This is one photograph, and it comes straight up from the land we're on, where we're doing our contact, goes up amongst the stars and stops, and it's a trans-dimensional light shift. Now, one thing I haven't shared, because it gets a bit too far into the weeds and I lose people here, the very advanced civilizations, their craft and the people on board are so seamlessly integrated that the craft transmit the level of consciousness of the occupants. That's how advanced the technologies are. So you'll have an experience with a craft and you'll experience the level of consciousness and even the personality, even though it's a spaceship. But we're talking about AI that would make Silicon Valley fall apart into ecstasy. But artificial intelligence and consciousness interfacing technologies at that level, at the interstellar level, at civilizations 4, 5, 6 and above. And this is interesting. We're out there setting up. It's still daytime. And I say there's a ship over by the creek. And this is coming down from the Tibetan stupa that the Dalai Lama asked Ambassador George, who is on our team and a friend, to build in Crestone. And look what comes. It just illuminates, and it's just barely in this dimension, but very golden. So the man takes his camera, just takes a normal picture, and there it is. There's nothing. This is out in the wilderness. The Great Sand Dunes would be right back here, if you know where that is in Colorado, southern Colorado. And this I love. This, we're on the beach at Marco Island. And we're here making contact. This is like 10 feet in front of me. And this comes in, you can see the light, and look how it starts as this point. And in that walnut-shaped object was a whole group of ETs that then, in their sort of astral electronic bodies, if you can understand, visualize astral projection, but with electronic level. They spread out around that whole area, and then we had several hundred points of blue-white light that we filmed for 2 or 3 hours that were the essences of these beings. That videotape is stunning. But of course it was night vision, so we didn't get color. So, and then this was in Australia, and there's this Someone's using a camera that was adjusted for, I think, infrared. So next, it's this strange object here, but this is so cool. So there was this comes in, and it's multiple lights. Now this, you can't see any color, but we could see the color of this ship. It was very close. These are all multicolored lights bleeding into each other. Blue, golden, red. And then this is beautiful. This was in last year in Arizona, up in the mountains. And this.
Big burst of light over there.
Now, it's really beautiful. There was a beautiful light that appeared here. They're golden. You can't see it with this. This is an iPhone hooked to a night vision. And this last time we were there last month, in May, there were at least 60 or 70 of these huge golden ships that appeared. They got filmed, but this hat doesn't have that prepared in it. But it was just like that. So it's quite remarkable. And then we were at Joshua Tree about a year and a half ago, and we have a man who's a medical doctor who does great photography with infrared. He has a still camera, and it was way past when any satellites were visible, and there were 2 points of light that moved over us. And with his camera, he captured this. Now you take these are stars, of course, and it's a few second time lapse. Let's see the next one. And you see this structure, all this. So it's sort of coming in and out of this dimension. This happened about, I think, 4 or 5 nights in a row, way after any satellites would be visible. Very unusual structure that came over. On this is beautiful. This happened last year up in Arizona in Oracle. And this is our group. And let me explain this before we go on. These are stars. This is a hillside, obviously. This is our group. It's a man named David Marconi was with us, he wrote Enemy of the State with Will Smith, so he's on our team. And he had a camera that was pointed in my direction in that part of our circle after we had done the meditation, because we had heard footsteps that were not corporeal. You'd look back, couldn't see anything, but then you'd hear something moving. And some people were touched, and at one point, he had his camera, had the lens open. It was on a tripod, very high quality camera. And we saw this reddish, I mentioned this earlier, like a teardrop shaped red orb, but it was elongated, flash in between 2 people. And it flashed in, and almost everyone looking in that direction saw it with their naked eye. His camera captured the ET, and it's this being. This is not a human. And this is an enhancement. You can see it sort of gets pixelated, but there's a black bubble that he's in. This is the head. It's kind of triangular. The tunic sort of draped, and has some sort of electronic device here. This is his hand here. And this is one eye, this is the other, the nose. Very angular, triangular head. There's a man you can make out just barely right here. This is a man who, right beside him, had his hearing permanently fixed. And this you can see as well. It's beautiful. The interesting thing about this is a little pixelated. There's a better picture somewhere. But I want to point out, nose, eye, head is partially in this transdimensional field, kind of tunic. There's something he's holding here. It seems like an electronic device, and this is the man. And there was another person here. But all we saw with the naked eye was a ruby red teardrop-shaped object. But the lens was open, so we got this. So this is an ET that's from a species that are master healers. And this man was a very sweet, pure-hearted man. And they decided they would correct his hearing loss. And the next day, and I've talked to him recently, he's still totally has no problems with the permanent hearing loss he had. So this happened the other night up on Mount Shasta, and we were up there. It comes in and wraps around, comes out of the field behind us. This is a tree, of course, in the Milky Way. It comes in here and does a loop and comes back and materializes. This beautiful, beautiful craft. And you can see the path of it, but it actually originated from right behind where I was sitting in the field up on Mount Shasta. Now, of course, we've had thousands of these experiences, and it's this beautiful golden light ship that appeared. And that was just the other night up on Mount Shasta. This is just not everything. We have thousands of these. It's to give you an example of the sorts of experiences we have. It's beautiful, celestial level interfacing with this dimension from an extraterrestrial source. So beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed those. Were those fun? Yeah.